The FDA is fighting back against calls for Pfizer and Moderna to amend their product labeling to be more accurate and reflect their safety and efficacy records. But the FDA has told these detractors to pound sand. Why? Well, apparently the vaccines do not need to demonstrate that they prevent infection or transmission. What? Well, that, my friends, is going to be the subject of today's show. And so from Trial Site News, I am Adrian, and our episode is starting right now. So, recently, during the Food and Drug Administration's contemplated changes to the COVID-19 vaccine status, they elicited a commenting period. An organization called the Coalition Advocating for Adequately Labeled Medicines, or CALM, which we here at Trial Site News have been tracking, filed a petition requesting that the agency update the COVID-19 vaccine product labeling for both Pfizer and Moderna products to better reflect their actual safety and efficacy more accurately. This third entry was titled Requests that the FDA require that the sponsors of Comirnaty, Spikevax, Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine, and Moderna COVID-19 vaccines, collectively Pfizer and Moderna COVID-19 vaccines, amend current product labeling. Now, while the principles behind CALM are experts and offer the FDA valid points in their comments, the FDA flatly rejected the organization's requests, declaring that a licensed vaccine doesn't need to demonstrate that they prevent infection or transmission, nor does a vaccine authorized under provisional emergency use authorization need to demonstrate infection, prevention, or transmission. Well, that's convenient. Good thing the FDA had an emergency use authorization to work with, right? Anyway, before delving into the FDA's response, here's a bit of background on who CALM is. It is led by Linda Wastila. She is a professor and Park Davis Chair in Geriatric Pharmacotherapy, Department of Practice Sciences and Health Outcome Research. Her and her group have previously put pressure on the FDA. As we here at Trial Site News have reported, the group's first notable effort to pressure the FDA to modify the COVID-19 vaccine labels was back on January 30th. Here they called for the FDA to address the following points. First, add language clarifying that Phase 3 trials were not designed to determine and failed to provide substantial evidence of vaccine efficacy against SARS-CoV-2 transmission or death. 2. Add language clarifying that the immunobridging surrogate endpoint used in multiple authorization indications has not been validated to predict clinical efficacy. 3. Add safety and efficacy results data from manufacturer randomized trials of current bivalent boosters that reported results after EUA was granted. 4. Add a clear statement that the FDA authorized a new Pfizer vaccine formulation containing tries buffer without requiring clinical studies to evaluate efficacy, safety, or bioequivalence to the formulation containing phosphate buffer. 5. Add a clear statement disclosing that a Pfizer Phase 3 randomized trial in pregnant women was completed as of July 2022, but there have been no results reported. 6. Add a clear statement that Pfizer vaccine efficacy wanes after 2 months following dose 2, according to the Pfizer Phase 3 randomized trial. 7. The following adverse event types should be added to the adverse reaction section of labeling. A. Multisystem inflammatory syndrome in children. B. Pulmonary embolism. C. Sudden cardiac death. And D. Neuropathic and autonomic disorders. Then we have number 8. The following reproductive health and lactation-related adverse event types should be added to the adverse reaction section of labeling. A. Decreased sperm concentration. B. Heavy menstrual bleeding. And C. Detection of vaccine mRNA in breast milk. Then we have number 9. Add frequency data for clinical and subclinical myocarditis. And finally, number 10, labeling should present trial results on serious adverse events in tables with statistics, as it is done for non-serious adverse events. And so, fast forward to April, Linda Wastila and others at CALM are at it again. This time they are using their expertise in pharmaceutical product labeling to request that the regulatory agency modify the mRNA-based COVID-19 vaccine product labels more accurately to reflect the actual nature of the still investigational vaccine products. The reason why this is important is that the FDA, in an extremely unorthodox manner, approved the vaccines. For example, with Pfizer they approved Comirnaty. Yet, they kept the BNT162b2 version, which is the investigational version, as the only vaccine in distribution. Now, we here at Trial Site News have hypothesized on this move. We noted that it appeared as if the Biden administration sought to kill the proverbial birds with one stone. The action would have generated more confidence in the market, thereby reducing any vaccine hesitancy while also providing the legal grounds for imminent forthcoming mandates at the federal and local levels, which of course much of the federal mandates announced by the Biden administration have since been thrown out by the courts. This then brings us to the FDA's response on this latest petition. In a telling letter to the organization, CALM, the FDA declared that your petition does not persuade us that a revision to the labeling is needed. As discussed further in the paragraphs that follow, your proposed statement for inclusion in the labeling is not required by statute or regulation, and we are not convinced by your argument that the change is necessary for the safe and effective use of the vaccines. It is important to note that the FDA's authorization and licensure standards for vaccines do not require demonstration of the prevention of infection or transmission. A vaccine can meet the licensure standard if the vaccine's benefits of protecting against disease outweigh the vaccine's risks for the licensed use. There is no requirement that the vaccine also prevents infection with the pathogen that can cause the disease or transmission of the pathogen to others. Similarly, a vaccine can meet the EUA standard without any evidence that the vaccine prevents infection or transmission. To that end, there is no requirement that the clinical trials supporting a vaccine's licensure or authorization can be designed to determine whether the vaccine prevents infection of a pathogen or transmission of that pathogen to others. And yet, as Professor Wastila pointed out to us at Trial Site News, the FDA, the CDC, the NIH, and the White House, not to mention the media, aggressively promoted these products as preventing infection and transmission. This is what the majority of Americans believed. This is the message that they trust. So they go out and get vaccinated and boosted to protect grandma and grandpa and to travel safely, not to mention to get back to normal. Yet the actual standard that the FDA officially documents is that the Pfizer and Moderna COVID-19 vaccines have been licensed or authorized for active immunization to prevent coronavirus disease 2019, caused by SARS-CoV-2. The top-down messaging from our government and media is egregious to me, irresponsible, misinformation of the highest degree. As well, the timing of the FDA's response is curious. It coincides with FDA's announcement that they no longer recommend the original 2 series monovalent product. This means there are no BLA Pfizer C19 vaccines effectively available on the market, which presumably includes Comirnaty and Spikevax, the fully licensed products. The only products recommended are EUA products. And where is the emergency? Where is the emergency indeed? Especially now that the national emergency has been declared over by the Biden administration. Somehow it never ceases to amaze the amount of disinformation disseminated by our own government and the agencies within. I suppose the question now is, where do we go from here? Time, of course, will tell. And that, my friends, will bring our episode to a close once more. For more content like this, be sure to check back to this channel daily, Monday through Friday, or for written articles published every day, 7 days a week, check us out at trialsitenews.com. And as always, my friends, thank you so much for joining me on the program today. From Trial Site News, I am Adrian, and I will see you all next time.